you spooky babies. This is Aubrey from the Grimoire of Horror, and today I am so lucky because I have with me Matthew John Lawrence and David Littleton of Uncle Peckerhead, the adorable, gory indie horror film. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
Great. Can't wait to get this underway.
Yeah. So with that, Matthew, can you tell me a little bit about your journey to becoming an indie horror filmmaker?
Sure. So I've loved movies my entire life, and I was definitely like when I was in my even before a teenager, visiting the video store, and the section that I always was drawn to because of the VHS covers were horror movies. I studied film like towards the end of college, and then in grad school, that was like my concentration. And I started making like surreal comedies, but I always like wanted to make my own horror movies. So with this project in particular, I had made a short horror movie. I was producing a bunch of short horror movies with my friends. And with one of the films I had produced, we went to this one film festival where the reason why I love horror movies is kind of it's in terms of being in a theater, it's one of the most fun movies to be an audience member. So at this one film festival, though, there was no really great midnight movie. There was no kind of like, not that I was around when Evil Dead 2 was in its regular theatrical run, but there was no kind of like fun, like, you're with your friends, you're a couple beers in, you maybe you've had a little smoke. And we were talking about, there were like a bunch of really solid self-serious movies or horror films, but there wasn't a really great like banger midnight movie. So I was talking with my girlfriend, or now my wife at the time, she went with me, and I was like, I want to make like a movie to fill that role. And I'd been developing a couple different ideas. I wanted to write about my tour experiences because in my 20s I was in bands and I had played in bands, and music has been such a part of my life. But I also had this idea for like an Adult Swim show that I was pitching about a bunch of punk kids that live with this hillbilly tweaker. It was kind of like I described it as a punk rock Full House meets a redneck Mr. Belvedere. And then I wanted to kind of like I wanted to see if I could take all these ideas and kind of add that horror element to it. And that's kind of when the idea for Uncle Peckerhead came around. And really from like the seedling of an idea to principal photography, to the first day of principal photography, it was just like a year basically. So between like getting a draft out and starting pre-production, it really started in like the spring or summer of 2017, and we were shooting in June of 2018.
And like watching Larry Gone Demon, you can see some of the seeds of it. Was that the catalyst, or is it linked in any way? Or
yeah, so like before Larry, I had done a feature film that had like a horror element, but it was like a lot more indie and kind of sleepy, and and what I wanted to do was kind of see if I could make kind of a balls to the wall, like just like a hyper frenetic, crazy fucking movie with Larry. And I'm not saying that it succeeded on all counts, but I really liked that experience. I felt that like that was the first time that I really had a handle on, I should punch myself for saying this, but a voice. Like I kind of had found my voice. So yeah, I mean, and it was also like the first time that I had collaborated on something, film centric with Jeff Riddle, who wrote all the music for Uncle Peckerhead, and he's in Larry Gone Demon. And he was such like a huge help in the production of that film, like both in front of and behind the camera. So it was like really when, I started to kind of assemble like a really reliable group of people to make stuff with and count on and know that they would be able to kind of answer the call. So yeah, I mean, it was like, it definitely gave me a boost of confidence that, now I can try my hand, and I had a kind of a better handle on my voice, and I had like a stronger crew to work with.
And David, how did you get into acting, and how did you, come by the role of Uncle Peckerhead?
So I did like community theater and stuff like that when I was a kid. And then I got pretty serious about it in high school, and I studied it in college. And then I moved to New York City, and I went on auditions for about 6 months, and then I was just like, nope, not for me. Just like the whole business side and self-promotion part of it, it was just like not a good fit. So I became a graphic designer, and I did that for 30 years. And then in 2016, so 5 years ago, I wanted to see what it would be like to revisit that. And because I was in such a different place and everything, it all just kind of worked. And so I went and did a community theater production of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And then I did a year of complete garbage, one-act plays and shorts. And I did a spoken word school shooting play that was basically a nightmare.
It sounds highly insensitive.
So afterwards, my friends who were nice enough to come and see me in it were like, at one point, did it start to rhyme? It was so bad. But then I got really lucky, and I got cast in this great production of a revival of The Skin of Our Teeth off Broadway. And immediately after, I did Shakespeare in the Park with the Public Theater, working with Oscar Eustis, who's a genius. And so then I started to work in theater a lot more. And I was actually, you mentioned St. Pete's, I was down in Sarasota.
Oh, yeah.
So I was doing a play down there about an Appalachian coal miner being stuck in a mine after a collapse. And I saw the notice for Uncle Peckerhead, and it said like Appalachian hillbilly who just happens to eat people. I was like, wow, I'm halfway there, you know? So yeah, I sent in a tape, and yeah, the rest is history.
Oh, that's wonderful. I like the jump from coal miner stuck in mine to
Right.
coal miner eating people.
Yeah.
The jump's actually not that far at all.
No. You get hungry in a mine.
Yeah. So, David, what was your experience like working on this film? All that comes to mind is wet and gross.
No, I mean, yeah, there are moments of that, definitely. But it was so much fun. Yeah, I had initially I had a couple of reservations because I got cast, and they made the offer, and then they sent the entire script, and then there's this page towards the back where it's like, and then he shoots diarrhea out of his butt all over everybody, and I was like, ugh, and I started to have like reservations, and so Matt and I had lunch, and Matt's so smart and so passionate and easy that I just like was really able to completely like give myself up to the project in terms of this guy has taste. He's not gonna make a fool out of me. He's a good guy. So I went in with a really positive attitude, and every day it just got better and better because the cast and crew were such a dream to be around. Like usually when you do a play or you do a movie, there's always like one or two people that are just like assholes. And this production was essentially asshole free, which is kind of a miracle. And Jeff Riddle and I were roomies throughout the process. We shot all over Jersey, Philly, Brooklyn. And so he and I bedded up together, and then we would go, and it was Jeff's van in the movie, and we would go and drive the van and pick up the girls, and they would like play all this punk rock music on the way to set, and it was kind of like this a real like tour. And it ended up being a real bonding experience. And like some of the people involved with this, I love as much as like people who've been in my life for like 30 or 40 years, you know, like they're just beautiful, fun, big-hearted, passionate people. I mean, Jeff Riddle is a fucking dream, and so is Matt, and so is Wiki, and so yeah, I had a blast. I had an absolute blast, and the Matt was very good about the stuff that was like you would think like getting shot with blood or hosed off or you know at the car wash. You know, Matt was so careful to minimize the discomfort during those things. He was really organized about it and just said like, let's make sure everybody is ready to go when we do this because we don't want to do this like 20 times.
Yeah.
So he was very smart and organized the way he ran the set.
So Matthew, where did the idea for a story about a kindly people-eating roadie come from?
Yeah, I mean, like one of the things that I've always wanted to do is to make a film about the realities of touring because I think it's romanticized. And now, like even now that I'm like over a decade removed from that time, I look back and I romanticize it. But in reality, it's like it's not. I didn't find it fun. I was kind of like miserable while I was doing it. And like it is kind of like an unforgiving because I never did it at any level that you could do it with comfort. So I wanted to make a film because like I know all of my friends had been in bands or are currently in bands, and some of them have found success, but a lot of them like we share. It's crazy how universal the experience is like you have your specific and your singular stories that you can share, but in reality, like you share like a lot of the same bullshit. And I found that like there are very few films that kind of accurately depict that life and that lifestyle. So I wanted to make a movie like that. But with anything I do, I always love to kind of make it a high concept or make it surreal or just heighten it in these weird, whacked out ways. So this was just kind of like a combination of a bunch of different ideas that I had kind of like going around in my head. I think it was just and like pretty early on, I knew that I wanted the band to play original music, and I knew that I wanted to work with Jeff again, and I wanted him to be in it. So like Max was probably even the first character that I had planned to kind of have in the movie. And while I was writing the script, I had reached out to Jeff and I had asked him like, "Hey, can you write some music for it?" And he basically like conceived of an entire album. Like I would just have these kind of markers in the script where I would kind of give him like a basic idea or tone of what we were going for, and then he would write music around it. So it really kind of developed as it went on with both the music and just kind of a bunch of different ideas that I kind of melded together. And then I should say, since David had talked about, you know, like how he got involved is David was such a godsend because, you know, the character, like I wrote, like, even though it is obviously like he can kind of, people can do it broad, like a broad interpretation of it, but it was a pretty specific character. And we were working on a micro budget, like absolutely no money. And like we had done 3 days, which is like in micro budget territory, like an eternity of casting for specifically just Peckerhead. And we had seen like, without exaggeration, like 50 or 60 people, which is like insane, you know, and none of them came close. And we reached this point during like pre-production where we were set to, you know, shoot the movie in a month or two. And like I had talked to 2 of the people I was producing it with, and I was like, I'm not sure what, like I can't imagine anybody we've seen so far being able to do this role. And it all hinges on this character because it can be so broad and so hack, and so like this person has to be like this really charismatic, like not just kind of like your typical like yokel. And like it's crazy. Like I don't believe in like, you know, like God or serendipity or anything like that, but like I think it was like the next day or a couple of days after, David had sent a video of his audition to one of our producers, and she sent it immediately. And it was really like David read for the diner scene. And he did it exactly like you see it in the movie. So like it was for the first time I had seen a scene done in the way I'd kind of seen it in my head. And it was just a matter of getting David up there, like in New York City, to kind of read with the rest of the main cast that we had assembled by that time. So yeah, I mean, we got really lucky that, through the people we assembled, but then getting like people that actually breathed life into the characters. Like I can't imagine Uncle Peckerhead without David, because I think David made that character, like just absolutely kind of brought that character to life.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I mean, I have to say that my favorite part of the movie is Peck himself, or as my friends and I watch the movie together, call him Unky Peck. It's amazing. There's so many like awe-inspiring moments, whether it's like an aw shucks or him just genuinely hyping this indie band, getting the crowd involved and selling merch. But then there's some moments that you pull off, David, where he's terrifying. Like his face changes, his demeanor. So when you approach the character Peck, like, how'd you go about bringing him to life, and what special twist or personal touches did you add to the character?
Well, it's a credit to Matt, both as a director and a writer, because there's so much going on there, like I think Peck genuinely loves these guys, in the same way I fell in love with the actors. And so that was, easy, because they're just like so also charming. But the way Matt's written it is like you're never 100% sure, or there is this leeway of, well, is this who he really is? Because they keep kind of finding out shit about him that is not true. That he's in a heartfelt way told them that it was. So the Peck, the sweet-natured Peck, to an extent, is based on a relative of mine. I have an uncle who is such a nice guy, but that's almost exactly like how he talks, like his speech and all of that, and just his tone, and just like whenever like he talks to me, he's like, "Well, hi, David. Hi, David," and he makes like David like have like 20 syllables, so and then again, it's in the script. Like ultimately, Peck has to survive, and so as much as he loves these guys, like the preservation instinct overrides everything. And so when they threaten him, and when they're going to toss him, or call the police on him or whatever, like it's not so hard to turn on a dime, because like at the end of the day, Peck has to survive, and it's not easy for him. And I think he would really love to go for years, just like touring with these guys and just hanging out with them and doing whatever they needed, as long as he could eat people along the way.
Just that little caveat.
Yeah, just that.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's perfect,
And thinking about that, Matthew, I was personally very drawn to the relationship between Uncle Peck and Judy, which to me felt like a back and forth with mistrust, need on both sides, and then at moments, genuine respect. Thinking about Judy's relationship with Peck, specifically how she felt about Peck, but also Peck's need for survival, I would say there's a strong argument that this movie is a great allegory for drug addiction. And when you have a family member who's going through that, is that something you'd agree with?
Yeah, no, I mean, totally agree with. Like, I think, with people with substance abuse issues, like if they're in your life, whether it's family or friends, it's like fun until it's not.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely like that was intentionally there. And I think you can kind of I mean, you can definitely see it as an allegory for drug addiction, but like something that I was thinking about, and specifically why we call it Uncle Peckerhead, beyond like he fulfills this kind of, familial role of uncle, is that, just like kind of the duality of like individuals, how, like I wrote it around the time that Trump was elected, and this idea that, you can have people in your family that are really like beautiful people who like are important to you, but are making these nihilistic choices, or getting behind something that's so destructive and so bad for not just you, but people outside, like just stuff like that, of reconciling that somebody can be both destructive and be a negative force in not just your life but your livelihood and other people's livelihoods, but also can be like legitimately like a really compassionate, kind, gentle person, and that both of those things can exist in that person. Like we're not just one way or the other. And I think drug addiction like lends to that too, in that people who are suffer from that can do really heinous, awful things, but that shouldn't, and it doesn't hopefully define them and their entire personhood. But that it's also like, to put it lightly, a total drag for the people that are in that that cyclone. So yeah, I mean, I definitely, both of those things like I was meditating on when I was writing that character, and just especially the relationship between Judy and Peck.
Yeah, and it really comes through in the movie. Their relationship it's fascinating because I mean, Chet is amazing
Yeah.
in the movie. She does such a good job with Judy, and very relatable too.
Yeah.
That drive that pushes the story, and that like balancing of risk versus reward with spending time with Peck. So Matthew, I have to ask, there's a lot of little details and affects in all of your work that lend a sense of out of time or out of date. For example, like the lack of cell phones and the pay phones in Uncle Peckerhead, but yet like the fashions are kind of vaguely modern. The Polaroid camera in Shoebox Redhead, the tube TV and Larry Gone Demon. Is this an indication, like do you envision your work being set in a different time, or is this just an aesthetic you're drawn to?
Wow, that's a great question, and A+ research on Shoebox Redhead. I can't believe that. That's my thesis film from grad school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for for the past few films I've made, we've really tried to make it intentionally ambiguous as far as the decade in which the story is taking place. Sometimes it's really difficult when you're working on such a small budget, because in the background, if there are if you have like a 2020 Acura or something like that, it's tough to kind of make it a little bit more that way. But yeah, I mean, I just think aesthetically, I'm really into just some of the, whether it's a device or whether it's, I hate having computers or cell phones. I'm not sure if it's because as a professor, all of my students just rely on that to convey story information, and it just drives me up a wall. And I feel that like there's just better ways to kind of like it doesn't need to be so technology centric. Yeah, I mean, it's in terms of especially for Peckerhead, we really wanted it to be kind of in a perfect world it would have been set in the 90s, but we knew we didn't have that much control. So what we tried to do was just make it kind of a decade ambiguous as much as possible.
So David, do you have a favorite memory of working on the set of Uncle Peckerhead?
I have a bunch, honestly. I loved shooting the scene with Judy at the hotel for reasons that you kind of discussed about the relationship, and because Chet's so great, and it just looked beautiful. Like I saw it through the monitor at one point, and the guys, Mike and Kyle, who did the camera work, just did such a beautiful job. So I just remember that was just such a nice moment, because when you're making a movie, like on crappy movies and on good movies, you put in the same amount of effort, so you just never know. And so like seeing that on the monitor and seeing just like how beautifully she was lit, and it was just like, wow, this might actually be a movie. So that, and probably the last night, because the last night was the way we shot all non-effects things in the first 2 weeks, and then the last week was kind of all gore stuff and stuff with, you know, weird practical effects. And so the last night was the metalheads in the parking lot scene. And that's just, everything about that scene is just like so fun and so crazy. And Matt tells this story all the time, but you know, so we've been shooting, I think that was our 19th day.
Yeah, 18, it was day 18.
Yeah, so and we were all pretty beat, you know, because there were long days, and the four of us were in a lot of scenes, you know, and so and then the metalheads came, and they just brought so much energy because it was their only day, and they were just like, fuck yeah, let's go, you know. And so it just kind of got everybody hyped. The very last shot, if I'm not wrong, Matt, was the decapitation. And you know, like Matt said, it was a very, very low budget. And so it was kind of a, either we got this or we don't. And I think we all felt so much pressure, but at the same time, I mean, it's like an athletic event or something, because you're just like, the adrenaline is going, you know, there are like, the entire crew is just out of the shot. And so you've got Jared, you know, pumping out the blood, and you've got, you know, Kyle just like at your knee, you know, with the camera, and it was just so much fun. And everybody, like, usually when people are not involved, they're like taking a break, having a smoke, eating, whatever, but like everybody was there, everybody wanted to see it. And yeah, just kind of insanely went without a hitch, and it was just like gleeful and crazy, and blood everywhere, and blood got on the camera. Yeah, so it was really fun. And directly after that, when we kind of like wrapped out, Matt and I shot this very funny picture, because the park was right on the entrance to the New Jersey Turnpike. And so he and I shot this picture where I'm in full, like, covered in gore, Peckerhead makeup, and we're hitchhiking on the off ramp to the, and it's my favorite picture from any of the behind the scenes stuff. So probably that would be my best memory. But there, I mean, the experience is just chock full of just bonding moments, and just like everybody was just terrific. So it's hard to pick one, because we had such a great time. I did.
Oh, that's wonderful. I know, and it comes through in the movie. Like, I mean, some of the best scenes are just everyone hanging out and bonding and talking. Like, for a horror movie, you don't get that usually.
Yeah. The pool stuff was so much fun, because we were just like, oh, it's a pool, you know. So it's just something so different and weird. And Greg was so nice and such a fun. Greg, who played Nick, was just like such a fun introduction to the chemistry that we had been working on for a week or so. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just all of it was really fun.
I mean, David, do you have a scene that you're particularly proud of in the movie?
I would maybe say the diner scene, and only because we were so pressed for time. We'd been in that location and we'd shot everything else but me. And then, so the clock was ticking. I think we had like half an hour and it's a long scene. It's like 6 or 7 pages of dialogue. And so I think we got it in like 2 takes. So that, I mean, that's nice. I can look at that and go, not bad, you know.
And Matthew, do you have any scenes that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to look and be like, man, I directed the shit out of that. Because yeah, I mean, because I mean, in reality, and this isn't like fake humility, like we won the lottery with, especially major, like the major cast members of the core 4, and then even like the supporting cast. There was very little like heavy directing I had to do on set. I mean, there were, I would say, like, in terms of like moments that like really had me exhale a sigh of relief. They're just like when you're working on a micro budget, it warms my heart to know that David and like people have said they had such a good experience on set. But like for myself, like, you know, when you're balancing like a bunch of stuff as producer and director, and you know, it's your money riding on it, and you're just like putting out fire after fire, like you're just riddled with anxiety and you're just hoping to make the day. So there were like a couple of times when, like, I think David mentioned the last day when it just like, you know, like everyone's energy is zapped, and then people come in and then everyone else just kind of like rises to the occasion. And there were like a couple other moments like that, like when Duh first performs at that venue. It was like our second or our third day of shooting. And you know, like it's a slow kind of build into a production, especially like people are kind of establishing a rapport. Some people knew each other before, but it was like by far the biggest like cast and crew I'd worked with like consecutive days at least. And when they started performing, they were playing to like a click track or like a pre-recorded track. But when they started performing, you could see like everyone kind of light up. And same thing like with that metalhead scene, like everyone just started to watch if they didn't have anything to do for that scene. And you could see that kind of made people realize that maybe there's something here. Like maybe this is actually going to be like something special. And there were like other moments, like when right after Judy realizes that the promoter's been killed, and it's that like back and forth camera action. Like that was by far the most enjoyable time I had on set, because they were just so good. Everyone was performing so well. And like, I just got to watch it kind of thinking as if I was an audience member, like what I'd be watching. And it's like, again, another moment when everyone just kind of like smiling in between takes. And like, you could tell everyone was like, this scene's like just works. Like we know we don't have to cut it together. We don't have to watch the dailies. We don't have to like, you know, it's just like it's working. So there were like, thankfully there were moments like that, like at least every couple of days, where there was just a scene where you could tell like everyone was really feeling it. And especially for me, like when you're just like, God damn, like, do we have a movie? Like have I risked like, you know, money and try and convince people? Like I convinced like a bunch of my friends to work for free or for like, you know, a small amount of money. I convinced David to do this fucking diarrhea scene, you know, and he's this like established theatrical like thespian, you know, like you're just like, have I? Because like, you know, it's like imposter syndrome, where like you're talking the game to everybody to get them involved, and then once they buy in, then you're just like, holy shit, I have to deliver. And thankfully there were just a bunch of scenes where like, you know, David is not speaking out of turn, like, and I know everyone says this, but we had such a great cast and crew that like, I mean, you would like, there'd be these scenes every few days where you're just like, man, everyone is just firing on all cylinders, and everyone's giving like, you know, their left nut to make sure this movie's like gonna succeed. So those are like my favorite moments, is like even being besieged with anxiety and like just feeling like can fall apart at any moment. That, you know, you just watch everyone and they're like, I mean, doing more than what they've been asked to do, and they're doing it pleasantly, and they're kind people to be on set with. So yeah, I mean, it's tough to narrow it down to one, but that's kind of what I love about working on Peckerhead.
So you mentioned the Dookie scene. So
Yeah.
I have to ask, not to get too much into how the practical effects came about, but how did that come about? All I could think is poor Jeff Riddle is multiple scenes with that matter, actually all of them.
Yeah.
It's a watching it as a viewer, it's a very moving and the stomach moving way scene to
Yeah.
watch. Like how did that effect get created? And
Yeah, I mean, so it's a combination of things. Is one is with a character as terrible or pun intended shitty as Shiloh. Like I feel like he needed to be like done away with in one of the like most disgusting, deranged ways. And also like I'm thinking I wanted to make a midnight movie where people are cheering or screaming or cringing, and those are the movies I love. That like I love movies that can be both kind of really profane but also like have a lot of heart and like clearly like care for character, like that isn't just like one thing, isn't just like one box that's getting checked. And so like what again, like going back to just like winning the lottery as far as cast and crew, is we had written like all that stuff is in the script, but when we started reaching out to FX companies to see if they could, if they could do all of this, and once they heard our budget, they walked, like we didn't have any money to work with. And luckily one FX house, the guy's like, you can't afford me, but I have a guy that I use for freelance sometimes. His name's Jared Baylog. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right, but Jared, reach out to him, see if he's interested. And we reached out to Jared, and he's like super kind dude, really smart, really tenacious. I mean, we didn't have to cut a thing from the script. He wasn't like, and sometimes when you work with people, they're just like, yeah, that's not my pay grade, or like, I can't do that. He was game to learn if he didn't know how to do it. And he and his assistant Sean were amazing. They worked that last week on all of the practical effects and makeup stuff. And I mean, like again, he's pulling like 18 hours with the rest of us, and just was able to bring all of these crazy ideas to life. So yeah, it's just winning the lottery with a crew like that.
yeah, and I don't think the movie would be the same without it. Like all the elements, the adorableness, the character bonding, the truly creepy and uncomfortable horror scenes, and then just the over the top gore, like it all comes together to make this beautiful, unique film.
Man.
And speaking of which, I happened to see on social media a mention of possible Peckerhead 2. So is that in the works at this time?
So yeah, I mean, I have a draft for the sequel. I want to do it. I want to work with the same cast and crew again, and it's just a matter of like finding a check to cash. So like we're pitching it in a myriad of ways as a proper sequel. We're also very open and not opposed to doing a series. So it's like right now, like if we're doing it, it's just finding some financiers to do a sequel, or to do like the sequel to it, but also just kind of pitching it in many different realms of like what we can do with it. So yeah, I mean, I'm loving the script, and I don't know, like I know I can say that Jeff is writing music both for the sequel, and he's also releasing a proper LP of the songs from the original movie, plus some new songs. So I'm really excited. I've heard a bunch of it. It sounds really good, and I know the script is like sky's the limit. We want to do it like much bigger, much crazier. Hopefully have some cameos from some people that people might recognize from various film and television like genre stuff. But yeah, I'm really hoping that maybe we can get some interest over the summer and fall, and hopefully shoot like late or early next year, or late this year or early next year.
That's amazing. I'm rooting for you guys.
No.
Especially because the way, not to spoil anything, but the way the movie ends, it feels like we could comfortably jump into, not that that's necessarily what you're planning, but we could jump into a Peckerhead too, very naturally.
Yeah, Aubrey, I mean, yes. So like and when I wrote the film and had that ending, I imagined, because I have kind of like a duh universe kind of imagined. So like I always wanted to and had plans to, if we were lucky enough to extend that story and to extend that those four characters. So I'd love to. It'd be a dream. I'm lighting candles every day. Yeah.
We'll pray at the altar of duh with you. Well, that's all the main questions I had, but as a little cap to this interview, I like to do a series of rapid fire questions, just so viewers can get to know you guys a little more and we can have some fun. Don't think too hard on them, but here we go. First question for Matthew. What's the scariest animal and why?
Oh man, that's a good question. Oh, damn. Oh my God. I would say probably like one of the big cats. And I know, Aubrey, that you mentioned that there might be a cat butt coming through the screen at some point. But I'm scared of big cats, especially for two reasons. One is I'm allergic to domesticated cats. But two, just the idea of how they like hunt. And I'm an indoor kid, so just being the idea of being out in the jungle and some big cat stalking me, just I can't think of anything scarier. Just because I'm scared of small indoor cats, and being outside with big outdoor cats, just I will not survive well in those environments.
Do you have like a childhood trauma of being stalked by a domestic cat? You're seeing the real core of Matthew's horror.
Right.
Oh man, yeah, maybe. I mean, like I think maybe there's probably some childhood trauma. I remember my grandmother had a cat and her name was Christine, and beyond being allergic, so anytime I'd go to the house, I wouldn't be able to breathe, and then the cat would like fucking sneak up, like you'd be like walking up a stair and would jump out from the bathroom and like kind of like attack you. It was like a cat that should have been like not at a house where children are like are would be visiting. So yeah, any cat, yeah, no, just I do not do well. No offense to the cat lovers out there, love all animals, but
I have a
yeah.
cat on my shirt. Cat lover here. So David, zombies or demons?
Oh, demons.
Yes.
Demons. Definitely demons. I mean, they have all the resources of hell, you know.
Mhm.
Zombies just shuffle around, or sometimes they're fast, but you know, not very good conversationalists.
Yeah.
No.
So demons, 100%.
Team Demon. Gotcha. I'm on Team Demon with you.
Me too.
All right. Matthew, if you had to film a movie where Uncle Peckerhead had to go head to head with another supernatural being in Freddy versus Jason style, who would it be and why?
That's such a good question.
You
Damn.
could cheat and say Larry.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would love that, just because I would love to work with both David and Ryan, who played Larry, and Ryan also played Shiloh in the movie. So I would love to do that. Man, I'm trying to think. I mean, oh damn. I mean, I think it'd be. I wonder, because like, I wonder if you'd want somebody who is also like has more charisma to them, like a Freddy, but would that be just too much charm between two opposed forces? Like, do you need a foil of like a monosyllabic or a silent kind of like hulking beast like person to be a nice foil to Peck? Or would you want like kind of a Freddy or a Chucky or like some wise Kraken? David, who do you think? Who would you want to go toe to toe with?
The one I'm thinking of, just because I think it would be hilarious, is the little bitch from The Ring.
Oh my God. That would be so good.
That would be amazing.
That would be such a crazy high concept idea.
Right?
Oh, that would, yeah. And Sadako has been featured in Versus film, so it'd be perfect.
Yeah.
So fun. I would love if I knew that we could get the right, or like somebody would give us the rights, or somebody would pick up Peckerhead. That I would write that on spec. I'd write that for free. I would love to do that. Yeah.
All right, David, if you could take the place of any actor, doppelganger style, who would it be?
And have their career or
Have everything.
oh, that's a great question. Who's the guy in Broadchurch? Who? David Tennant. David Tennant, maybe, or Mark Rylance. I mean, only because he does such kind of amazing work. Or hello, Nicolas Cage.
Oh my God, yes.
Just because it would be so fun to be batshit crazy all the time.
And no one would know if your acting is good or not.
Right. And I could have that meltdown in that tiger t-shirt in the bathroom from Mandy. Fuck yeah, Nicolas Cage. Done.
So good. I know. I feel like he might also have a huge hand in the revival of modern horror. Matthew, would you rather be stuck in a van with Uncle Peckerhead or Dominion Rising in Shiloh?
Oh my God, easily Peck, 1000% always. Peck is such a good time guy. Yeah, I mean, I've had to do so many shows with Shiloh-like characters in my late teens and 20s that I've had my fair share of the Dominion Rising boys. Yeah, Peck all the way. I'll take a murdered person here and there.
Worth it. David, if you could roadie for any band, who would it be, and would you eat them?
I was just thinking about the Simpsons Smiths episode.
Oh, I haven't watched it yet.
So you would roadie for them, and then 20 years later you would eat them.
Yeah.
No,
and then Morrissey would probably show footage of it during one of his shows or something.
Right. Maybe the Clash.
Oh.
I mean, I'm assuming I can go back in time too, or is it present?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Clash, maybe.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Matthew, if you could see any horror movie turned into a sitcom, what would it be and why?
Oh
my God.
That's an amazing question.
That's a great question. I know this is the type of question, Aubrey, where I'm going to give an answer right, and then I'm going to be thinking about this for days on end, and I'm just going to like
5 different answers.
That's the one. Oh man, Sleepaway Camp would be really funny. Because I love camp movies. I think I'm a huge fan of camp movies. I don't think there are enough camp movies, and I think you could not easily, but I think it'd be fun to kind of do a sitcom-y take on like a sleepaway camp thing. Damn, that is so good. I don't know. Probably sleepaway.
Answer, David? I could come back to you.
Yeah, David.
Oh, do I have an answer? I mean, The Exorcist would make a pretty funny sitcom. Because it's just like, oh, who are we dealing with today? Is it Reagan or is it the devil?
Yeah, I mean, Night of the Creeps could be funny because I've always wanted to do like a sitcom on a college campus, like those. There hasn't been one that's like really kind of jived or gelled, like, and I think you could do something like that because that also has kind of the zombie or the possessed type of thing. And yeah, there's a lot of different elements you could work with. I think for a sitcom, you'd need like a location or an environment that like you can constantly, there's so much to pull from. That's why I'm thinking like camp, campus, something like that. You need like a space.
Yeah, I was even thinking like any of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies have it set in high school, and
oh my God,
Freddy's just like the Screech character that pops up.
Yes, exactly.
Freddy's like the janitor.
Yeah,
the creepy janitor,
Mr. Belding, if you will.
Okay, get on that script. Matthew, if you were given an endless budget to go back and add practical effects or CGI effects to Uncle Peckerhead, would you? And if so, what would it be?
Man, I don't know if I don't know if I'd go back. Because that's also like another really great question. What ended up happening is because we had such a small budget, we cut out like I cut out a few sequences that I wanted to do, and obviously we just had to cut a ton of corners. I always think like looking, like I'd much rather make it a series where we could kind of reimagine that first story or that first film and like add all the stuff we want, but do it in like a serialized form, like basically kind of like retool it instead of like George Lucasing this the movie. But I would love. I don't think I'd ever and yeah, I would always love to add more practical effects. CGI I think can always be dodgy if I found like the right mix of both, because I know sometimes you can do it really well. But yeah, I'd love to bring like Peckerhead in a world that we could go like so much bigger and crazier. So I'd probably like say, yes, please give us 100 million, but let us do like, a 10 episode season. So yeah, I mean, that would be a fucking dream though.
David, what would your dream role be as an actor?
Yeah, I don't. It's funny because I don't know that I have one. There are a couple plays that I'd like to do eventually. I'd love to do Lear eventually. I'd love to do Long Day's Journey into Night eventually. Although I'm totally wrong for it, I'd still like to do it.
David, I will, if I ever make any money, if I'm ever not in debt, I'm paying to do a production of you and Lear. I would love. Oh my God.
Imagine Lear set in Appalachia.
Oh my
Yeah, there you go.
That would be
Oh,
phenomenal.
I actually love that idea. Oh, and Claudius too. I'd like to do Claudius.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's so dope.
I'm trying to think of a film thing. If there's a film thing that I'd.
Uncle Peckerhead too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's all the questions I had today, guys. It's been so much fun chatting with you, talking gore, talking aw shucks.
Great questions. Excellent questions.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah, Aubrey, thank you. Thank you so much for setting this up. It was awesome talking to you, and I just wanted to thank you and everyone behind this production and people listening or watching or whatever. Because like one thing that like I know David and I always say, when we talk to people is like the real deal is that the reason why we're promoting the film is because this is our movie. And like we don't have a marketing team behind us or like a PR team, so just the fact that there are people that one love the movie and two are so well researched and well read and like ask great questions. It definitely like gives us hope that hopefully we can make like another one or make more stuff because there are like smart, cool people that care enough about it. So thank you for.
Yeah, and on that note, do you guys have any projects coming up that you want to talk about and give a shout out to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm currently like writing a bunch and trying to get some stuff off the ground. I'm like I have no idea. I'm hoping that we'll be able to shoot something, whether it's like Peckerhead 2. I have like a couple other projects that I'm developing. I would say if anybody's interested in just like hearing more about like what we do, subtletyrex.com is kind of like our production hub, and that lists like some films we've done and then some new projects, and that's like where like you'll learn about like the Duh album, or if anything gets off the ground, like we start production on something. And if you go to unclepeckerhead.com, it takes you there. So either one of those.
And also merch. There's merch.
Yeah, the good
merch is coming. Yeah, we have new merch that's coming. I actually just got off the phone with the merch guys. So we got some new merch coming. Hopefully that Duh album will get released in the summer at some point. So yeah, exciting.
And how about you, David? I know it's a very weird time, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm just starting to audition again, and so we shall see.
Yeah, well, keep us informed. We'll blast it.
Absolutely.
Get that next great role, which you will.
Thank you.
All right, Guys, I can't tell you enough how much I love Uncle Peckerhead. And anyone who hasn't seen it, please go out and see it. It's a phenomenal film. I still can't believe it's an indie film. It's just so masterfully done on all levels. So please treat yourself to a great horror film. And it's been so much fun chatting with you guys. And
Thank you.
we'll get to chat for Uncle Peckerhead too.
Hell yeah. Fingers
All
crossed.
right.
All right.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Take it easy.
Thank you.